Welcome to your personalized deep dive. Looks like you've been hanging out with Alan and Alice over at Learn English with Podcast on YouTube.
Yeah, they're great.
So we're going to kind of take what they've shared and really dive even deeper into those techniques.
Yeah. They really have a solid approach.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is how they really tie those skills to your personal goals.
Right.
So, are you thinking about using English professionally? Or maybe for travel?
Right.
Or connecting with people from different cultures?
That's so important.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the how and kind of forget about the why.
Oh, why? Yeah.
I remember when I was learning Spanish, I was so focused on grammar rules that I forgot to actually speak, when I was practicing.
It happens to all of us. But
yeah.
what I think is great about Alan and Alice is that they really emphasize active listening is like a core skill.
Okay.
And they talk about moving from passively hearing
right
to really engaging with the language.
Right. It's the difference between just hearing a song
Yes.
and actually listening to every note.
Exactly.
Every lyric.
They go a step further.
Okay.
They talk about active listening as problem solving almost.
Yeah.
It's about searching for those aha moments
Mm-hmm.
where the language clicks.
Yeah.
You're not just absorbing the sounds, you're actively trying to make sense of them.
Right. And that's where it can get tricky.
Yeah.
I've definitely felt overwhelmed by fast speakers, accents, all the idioms.
Those idioms, yeah.
They pop up everywhere,
Yeah, and those are common challenges.
Yeah.
And they can be really discouraging. But the good news is
yeah.
there are strategies to overcome them.
Right.
And what's key is to start by figuring out where you're at.
Okay.
What is your current level?
Right.
Do you feel comfortable with everyday conversations? Can you follow along with movies or TV shows?
Yeah.
Or are you just starting out with, basic phrases?
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we jump into content that's way too hard.
Exactly.
And then get frustrated.
It's like trying to run a marathon with no training. You need to build up to it.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the first things we can do is assess your comfort zone.
Okay.
And then start choosing resources that are challenging.
Right.
But not overwhelming.
How do we determine our level, though?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
One simple way to do this is to use the 5-finger rule.
Okay.
So you choose a short audio or video clip.
Okay.
And as you listen, you hold up a finger.
Okay.
For each word or phrase that you don't understand.
Got it.
So if you have all 5 fingers up at the end, it's probably too difficult for you right now.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a simple
Yeah.
and visual way
Visual,
to kind of figure out where you're at.
Right. It gives you a quick snapshot. And then as you get better, you can start, choosing harder stuff.
Okay. So once we've figured out our level,
yeah.
What are some of the techniques we can use?
Okay, so Alan and Alice mentioned this technique called shadowing.
Right, shadowing.
Have you heard of this before?
Yeah, it sounds really interesting.
It is. It's actually something you've probably done unconsciously.
Okay.
It's basically mimicking a speaker's tone and rhythm.
Okay.
So imagine you're an echo.
Okay.
Trying to replicate their every inflection.
So you're stepping into their shoes.
Yeah.
Embodying their way of speaking.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And by doing this, you're training your ears to pick up on those subtle nuances in their pronunciation.
Right.
But you're also improving your own speaking skills at the same time.
That's a win-win.
It is a win-win.
Before we get too far into shadowing, though,
yeah.
Let's go back to some of the other techniques that they shared.
Yeah.
They talked about using subtitles strategically.
Yes.
Right.
And that's a really important point.
Okay.
Subtitles can be a great tool.
Yeah.
But you have to use them in a way that supports your learning.
Right.
Not hinders it.
So how should we use subtitles? Because I know I've been guilty of relying on them too much.
It's a common trap.
Yeah.
A good way to approach this is to start with subtitles in your native language.
Okay.
If they're available.
Right.
This gives you a general understanding
right.
without overwhelming you with English text.
Right.
And then as you feel more comfy, you can switch to English subtitles.
Okay.
And eventually the goal is to like wean yourself off completely.
Right. So think of subtitles as like training wheels.
Training wheels, exactly.
Okay.
You use them for support
Yeah.
until you feel confident enough to write on your own.
I like that.
Yeah.
So before we completely ditch the training wheels, though,
Yes.
what are some of the other resources that we can use?
They gave us a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, they did.
And they offered like a mix of classic and modern resources.
Okay.
So we have the tried and true platforms like BBC Learning English.
Right.
And ESL Pod.
Yes. Those are great.
Yeah, which are fantastic for lessons in grammar.
Yeah, I remember using BBC Learning English like way back when I first started.
Yeah.
It was really helpful.
They're classics for a reason.
Yeah.
But there's also some really cool modern resources out there.
Okay.
That fit different learning styles.
Like what?
Well, I know you like video content. So have you ever tried Duolingo's podcast?
I haven't. Tell me about it.
Okay. So it's really engaging.
Okay.
It's bilingual speakers having natural conversations.
Okay.
So it's great for picking up on vocabulary.
Right.
And idioms in context.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah.
And they also mentioned educational TikTok accounts, right?
Yeah. I know TikTok might not be the first place you think of.
Right.
But there's some really creative and informative accounts out there.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
It's amazing, all the different resources.
There are so many.
It can be a little overwhelming, though.
It can be, yeah.
To choose.
And that's where personalization comes in.
Right.
And that's something that that Alan and Alice emphasized.
Right.
They shared some real-life success stories.
Yeah.
To show how different techniques can work for different people.
Right. They talked about John, who struggled with fast speakers.
Yeah.
But found success by listening to podcasts.
Exactly. And John's story is a great example of how, making learning relevant to your interests can really help you stay motivated.
Right.
And then there was Kevin,
right,
who turned his commute into learning time by listening to audiobooks.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, finding those little pockets of time.
Right, those little pockets of time.
And turning those into learning opportunities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even small, consistent effort can yield big results.
Right.
And it all starts with those first few steps,
Yeah.
Figuring out your goals.
Right.
Understanding where you're at. And then choosing, resources and techniques.
Right.
That fit your needs and interests.
So we've talked about active listening.
Yeah.
The importance of choosing content at your level.
Yeah.
The value of personalization. What are some other key takeaways from their approach?
I think their emphasis on celebrating those small wins is really, really crucial.
Okay.
It's so easy to get discouraged.
Yeah.
Especially when you hit those roadblocks.
Right.
But it's important to remember that every step, no matter how small, is a victory.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I think we tend to focus on our shortcomings rather than acknowledging our progress. But those little wins can keep us going.
Exactly. Remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Right.
And every step you take brings you closer to your goal.
And speaking of steps,
yes,
Alan and Alice didn't just give us general advice.
Right.
They also gave us some hands-on exercises
right.
to put all this into practice.
Yeah.
So should we dive into those next?
Let's do it. Let's dive into those exercises because it's one thing to talk about active listening.
Right.
But it's another to actually do it.
Yeah.
And they had some really creative ways to make it happen.
They really walked the walk.
They did.
Remember that dictation exercise they talked about?
I love a dictation exercise.
Yeah.
A classic for a reason.
Yeah.
It sounds simple.
Right.
But it's really powerful for training your ears.
Okay.
So you choose a short audio clip.
Okay.
Listen really carefully.
Okay.
and try to write down everything you hear word for word. It's like a real-time test
Yeah.
of your listening comprehension.
And then you compare what you wrote
Yes,
to the actual transcript.
exactly.
Right.
That's where the magic happens.
Okay.
You get to see what tripped you up.
Yeah.
It's like a feedback loop,
Uh-huh.
you know? It shows you where to focus.
Okay.
And knowing that you like visuals,
Yeah.
I think you'd really enjoy this.
Oh, okay.
It's like solving a puzzle.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I love puzzles.
Speaking of puzzles,
Yeah.
there was another exercise where you listen for keywords,
Yes. So,
like a detective
yes.
searching for clues.
Okay.
So you listen to a clip, no subtitles, no transcript,
Okay.
and you write down any words that stand out to you.
Okay.
And then you try to figure out the main idea,
Okay.
just based on those words.
That sounds challenging,
It is.
but also kind of fun.
It's a good way to push yourself
Okay.
and see how much you can understand,
Right.
even when you don't catch every word.
It's a good point
Yeah.
because sometimes you don't need to understand every single word.
Exactly. Sometimes just getting the gist
Right.
is enough.
Yeah.
And over time,
Yeah.
as you improve,
Yeah.
you'll start to catch more and more details.
That's reassuring because I think one of my biggest fears is,
Yeah.
not understanding everything perfectly.
I get that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
even native speakers
Right.
don't catch every word.
Right. That's true.
A lot of it is context
Hmm.
and prior knowledge.
Right.
Speaking of context,
Yeah.
remember shadowing
Yes.
that we're talking about,
Yeah.
mimicking the tone and rhythm.
Yeah.
So now imagine applying that to a conversation
Okay.
that you've already watched with subtitles,
Okay.
but now you're watching it without them.
Okay.
It's like taking the training wheels off.
I like that.
Yeah,
So it's like a test.
it is a test.
Right. To see how much you remember.
Exactly.
And if you need to, you can always rewind.
Of course.
Right. Put
Yeah.
the subtitles back on.
There's no shame in that.
No shame.
Yeah.
And then there's the exercise.
Yeah.
Where you basically become your own pronunciation coach
Yes.
by recording yourself
Yes.
and analyzing your English.
I know that can be a little scary.
Daunting.
Daunting.
Not valuable.
It's super valuable.
Okay, so how does it work?
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
So you choose something to read aloud,
Okay.
something that interests you.
Right.
You record yourself reading it.
Okay.
You can even just use your phone for this,
Right.
and then you listen back
Okay.
and really pay attention to your pronunciation,
Okay.
your intonation,
Okay.
your pacing.
So it's like
Yeah.
holding up a mirror
Yeah.
to your own speech.
It can be a little shocking at first,
Yeah, I can imagine.
but it's really helpful because you start to notice those little habits
Yeah.
that you might not be aware of.
Right.
And you can do this regularly
Okay.
and track your progress.
So it's a tool for like self-assessment.
Self-assessment, exactly.
I think sometimes we get so focused on listening to other people
Yeah,
that we forget to listen to ourselves.
that's a great point.
Yeah.
It's all about developing that self-awareness,
Right.
which is so important.
And speaking of self-awareness,
Yeah.
Alan and Alice were really good about acknowledging the challenges that learners face.
Yes.
Right? Like
Okay,
fast speakers' accents, the fear of making mistakes.
All of that.
It was really refreshing
Yeah.
to hear them talk about it.
It made you feel less alone.
Less alone, yeah.
Yeah.
They also emphasize that we're not alone in this.
We are not alone.
Right. There's a whole community out there of
Exactly.
English learners.
So connecting with other learners can be really powerful. Yeah. Whether it's online or in person,
Yeah.
sharing your experiences,
Right.
supporting each other.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you're all in this together,
Yeah.
taking our own paths toward fluency.
It's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up,
Okay.
let's connect all this back to you.
Okay.
Think about how these insights
Yep.
and these techniques could impact your life.
Yeah, it really is amazing to think how much our lives could change by just being able to understand English better.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's not even just about the language itself.
Right.
It's about all the new possibilities it unlocks.
Yeah.
Stronger listening skills
Mm-hmm.
can really have like a ripple effect on your whole life.
It's true. It's easy to think of it as like just another thing to learn.
Hmm.
But when you start to see it as like a key
Yeah.
that opens up new doors,
Yes.
that's when it gets exciting.
Exactly. Imagine you could like confidently talk to your colleagues from other countries,
Yeah.
or you could travel to a new city
Right?
and not have to worry about translations.
Or you could finally watch that British show you've
Ah,
been wanting to watch without subtitles.
without the subtitles,
Those are
exactly.
some good goals.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not even just about those practical benefits.
Oh.
It's also about connecting with people
Mm-hmm.
on a deeper level.
Yeah.
Understanding their humor,
Right.
their perspectives.
Yeah.
It just adds so much richness to your interactions.
It's like you get a superpower
It is.
that helps you in all parts of your life.
It really is.
Yeah.
And here's something I want you to think about as you go on this journey.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the input,
Right.
actually listening.
Right.
But what about the output?
Okay.
How could being a better listener actually make you a better speaker?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I've noticed that when I'm really paying attention to how native speakers talk,
Yeah.
I just naturally start to
Yeah.
pick up on their pronunciation, their
Yeah.
intonation, even
Right.
new vocabulary.
Exactly. So by paying attention to those details,
Yeah.
your brain is soaking it all up,
Right.
even when you're not even trying.
It's like our brains are little sponges,
They are.
just absorbing all that information.
Yeah. And then when you speak, those patterns and rhythms,
Yeah.
they just start to come out naturally.
That's amazing.
It is. It is.
So as you keep working on those listening skills,
Yeah.
remember, you're not just understanding more.
Right.
You're also becoming a more fluent and confident speaker.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it all.
Well, this has been a really great deep dive.
I think so too.
And I think we've given everyone a good roadmap
I hope so.
to boost their English listening skills.
Absolutely.
It all starts with that active listening.
Mm-hmm. Finding the joy in the process
Yeah.
and celebrating all those little wins along the way.
Every single one.
And don't forget
What's that?
to make it personal.
Yeah.
Experiment. Find what works for you.
Uh-huh.
Keep those goals in mind.
Exactly.
The possibilities are truly endless.
They are.